Okay. Okay, chapter seven, skills for exploring non-effective content, thoughts, narratives, and stories. So clients need to reflect and have a clear understanding of their thoughts, right? So helping them, and that's what helping skills kind of does, is to help clarify those thoughts, and you're helping them to process through those thoughts that they have. Um, and a lot of people you'll find have narratives for their lives, right? And um, so you're there kind of to help them have those narratives, maybe even change their narratives, um, and help themselves. Like this here, it says clients often hear themselves in a new way once you help them uh, work through those thoughts and those narratives, right? Then there's differences among exploring narratives and ruminating and storytelling. Okay. So one skill that you're going to use is a thing called a restatement. So a restatement is exactly kind of what it sounds like, a repeating or paraphrasing of a non-effective content or meaning of the client's statements. Contains fewer but similar words as the client. So when you're restating it, you're going to put it in their own terms, but you're going to substitute some words that may provide different meaning for them, right? And so that they can maybe even create new meaning through, processing with you. So they're more concrete and clear than the client statements. So you're kind of getting more direct with these statements. Can be phrased tentatively or directly, and refer to things the client just said or to things the client said earlier in the sessions or treatment. So sometimes as they're going through these thoughts, you may refer back to, it's like previously you said this, maybe their story is changing a little bit, and maybe as they're processing through it, they're coming to some own conclusions on for themselves, or maybe it's not changing at all, and you want to make that concrete, by restating it in the way, and you can end it like, did I get that correct, or things like that too, so that they give a chance. To clarify it, right? Another one's called a summary. So summary is a type of restatement. It's kind of longer though than just a restatement of a phrase or something. So a summary can be a whole paragraph of words, right? But it ties together several ideas instead of just that one idea that you just had for as a restatement. This could be several ideas that you provide in a summary, and you could do this. I highly recommend you do it at the beginning of sessions. So summarizing, hey, I'm summarizing what we talked about last week. Is there anything you'd like to add to that? Right. And so then you both are getting on the same page and clarifying. And then at the end of sessions, you can summarize again. And even during sessions, you can provide summaries just to make sure that we're all on the same page. Um, so it contains several ideas or picks out the highlights and general themes of the content expressed by the client. So this is useful when clients have finished talking about a particular issue. So you want to summarize and clarify. That's so like we said, at the end of the sessions and at the beginning of each session, you could do that. Okay. So why do we do these, right? What's the rationale for creating these? So helpers need to be mirrors or sounding boards for their clients, right? So if they say something out of their mouth and you say something back, they go, wow, now that you say something and now that you've said that same thing, well, that sounds like, maybe I should change the way I think about that, right? And you could even do it with different tone of voice and things like that too, just to show, something different that they can think about, right? It can enable clients to clarify, explore more thoroughly, think about aspects that they hadn't previously considered before you started talking about that. So this is you're the helper, right? You play an active role in order to restate the essence and key components of that message that the client just talked about, right? And this is the part I like, orients the client to what to talk about next, right? So maybe we're finishing up on one sentence, maybe we're going to a new thought or something, but we want to make sure that we are on the same page with them. So restatements and summaries help to clarify, and it helps to make sure that everybody's on the same page. So how you can do this in your restatement is you can say, I hear you saying this. This is what I hear you saying, or whatever. It sounds as though you can say that. You're saying that, so, and then go on with the summary or the restatement. What you seem to be saying is, if I'm hearing you accurately, if I'm hearing you right, this is what I hear. Let me see if I got what you're saying. I'm not sure I got that completely. Let me try to summarize that and see if I got it. Okay. And then repeat or slowly draw out on the key words. So remember what we called those. Remember what we called those? When somebody says a key word, remember that? Like a handle.
Like a hot button or a
Yes,
topic thing.
yes. Good job. Yeah, hot button, and also a handle. So we're grabbing those handles. They're putting handles out there, and we're grabbing hold of those, right? Yeah, hot button and handles. Good job. So if you ever hear me say hot button or handle, that's one thing that these are words that we're grasping a hold of, okay? Restatement tips, right? Capture the cutting edge, the part that is most salient. What's the most important part of what you guys are talking about? What seems unresolved and what the client is most uncertain about, okay? Attend to what the client focuses on the most. If they're focusing on one specific thing, keep focusing on that. And that's the handle that we're saying, handle could be a word, a topic, or whatever that we're grabbing hold of. And what they focus on most, what the client seems to have the most involvement in talking about, what the client seems to have questions or conflicts about, and what has been left unresolved throughout, maybe in their life or that moment or whatever. What has been unresolved? We want to help in that. So we want to keep the focus on the client and the client's thoughts. Okay. A lot of people will come in and they go, and especially if it's husband and wife, they go, well, my husband this, my husband that, right? No, we're talking about you today, right? Your husband's not here. So the only thing that we can control in the room is our thoughts, meaning your thoughts and you. Okay. Keep them short. It's okay if the restatement is wrong, as long as given empathetically and without judgment. So they'll tell you, and maybe it's not wrong. Maybe it's just maybe what their perception is in the moment, but they'll tell you, that's why I like saying, did I get that right a lot? Because I want to know insight from them, okay? What they're thinking. No, you didn't get that right. Okay, okay, tell me more about that. And then just keep exploring because eventually you'll get to the root. We're always looking for the root all the time, root of the cause. So, sharing your thought, what are your concerns about restating a client's statement? Think through that. What are your concerns about restating the client's statements?
I think for me, it was making sure that I am able to do that in a proper manner.
Hmm.
And also, you know, I mean, I've been to counseling myself, and I always see, that they write notes.
Yeah.
And so for me, I find it difficult to write notes and talk to a person at the same time
Mhm.
because I don't want them to think that I'm being inattentive.
Yeah.
And so that's a little difficult, but also it would be concerning that if I didn't take down notes, that I can actually remember what I need to say.
Joyce, me and you are right there together. Here's my thing. I am of an age where, man, I have to write down a keyword or I'll forget what I want to ask. And it is so
Right.
fleeting. It's like, I was like, oh, here's a great question I'm going to ask him. And then it comes time I have this break to ask and then it's gone. So I will
Yeah.
write myself a little note, in that
Right.
aspect.
So you don't write, I mean, when I went to counseling, I mean, the counselor wrote most of the time. That's one of the things that frustrated me is
Well,
that, I didn't get much feedback. I just saw a lot of writing.
yeah, you know what? So I think you're learning here through counseling that there's different theories and things like that too. They may
Mm-hmm.
have been from the psychoanalytic, and maybe they
Mm-hmm.
did take a lot of notes during that time. Some people do. Some people won't take a lick of notes, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they'll
Right.
write summaries at the end in their notes. So I'm of the school of if I'm going to write any notes at all, I may write, during the 50 minutes, I may write 4 sentences, but it's
Okay.
just to help me collect the most important parts, the things that stood out to me the most. And I may write one word down, and that will help me remember a question that I want to ask
Mm-hmm.
them.
Mm-hmm.
So that's about it because I do want to be attentive to them. And yeah, I'm with you. If somebody's taking a lot of notes and doing a lot of writing, I'm not feeling really good about that myself. But
Yeah.
that's just my personality type too.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's would be my only concern in
Hmm.
restating that, I don't. Because you can misinterpret what somebody's saying,
Yeah.
or you're lost of words and get a little sidetracked, and you got to get back on that topic. So
Yeah.
that was my concern.
That's a great point. I think, what other people might say in restating is, the client, I've heard clients go, well, and this is during the helping skills portion, right? And I don't take this the wrong way, but I mean because helping skills are there, and I want you to practice those for a reason. But they'll go, all they did was just repeat back to me what I said. Um, well, I'm like, good, because then they're using their helping skills correctly, all those things too. Um, so anyway, so that would be one thing that people may uh, worry about during the time. Any others?
I'm wondering, I guess, about tone.
Yeah.
When you restate a client statement, do you um, shroud it with empathy at some moments? Do you say it more in a curiosity tone? Because
Mm-hmm.
I, in your notes, you were saying like, don't sound judgmental. Um, and so I'm wondering if like a declarative restating of the statement does sound judgmental, or if there's specifics related to how is involved in it.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think tone, having an empathetic tone during those times when you are restating helps. Um, I think in the terms of judgment, feeling judged during that time, it would be the tone for me. Yeah, I think you're right on. And that's where the practice comes in. It's like, restating it in a way of, and maybe how you can say a sentence, then at the end, if you're asking a question, your voice goes up. Yeah. Wouldn't that be right? Things like that, something like that too. Yeah. So tone, that's a great point. Think somebody else, Macy, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I was gonna say that I'm like worried that like the restatement may like offend the client, whether it be like right or whether it be wrong. So that kind of ties in what she just said as well. Like you have to be empathetic and maybe the chance of getting offended would be less. Because like sometimes people don't want to accept something even though it's true and then they get offended and like defensive, I guess.
Yeah, and I think it's all in the way you can present it. Like, how do you uh, preface it, it's like, let me see if I get this right. And then you can restate,
Mm-hmm.
just so, or to clarify, restate it, right?
Yeah.
Use those, hear these things here. So what I hear you saying is, and then you're clarifying. So to me, it's like, yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. Or no, there's a little bit of difference, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if I'm hearing you accurately, things like that. Yeah, good, great question. I think this would help you. So go back to this slide when you guys are practicing and everything too, if you ever need help in those. Josh, were you gonna say something?
Yeah, I think for me, like I'm also like trying to listen to the tone of the client, maybe. If like if their voice is shaky when they say a certain thing, or I might miss the emotion, maybe
Oh, yeah.
focusing too much on the restatement of what I'm gonna say to the client.
Hmm.
I might miss the emotion of what if it's are they anxious or are they sad when they say it. I might miss that. That's kind of what I'm gonna fear, I guess.
That's a great point too. I think, did we go through immediacy last week? I think we did, right? So you can use immediacy in these motion, in this amount or in this time. So let me see if I got that right. And then you say, and then when you were saying this, what I got out of it too, I just saw this sense of sadness in your voice or, in your face or even the way you're sitting or whatever. So you can call out different things too if you want to call out emotions and stuff. Your voice, oh, I just noticed your voice changed when you said X, or you were more excited about this than this or whatever.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was wondering. Yeah.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, great. You guys are doing good. Yeah. Any other thoughts?
I
Like,
just feel like for me, a lot of the helping skills are things that I would naturally do, and
oh,
this
okay.
one's not. So I feel like trying to make myself form a restatement just might sound like ingenuine, whereas the other things come a little more naturally. So I feel like it seems more genuine.
Okay, you know what? Okay, Jolie, perfect. I love that you said that too. So, and that's what all the practicing is about. But what I would think about a restatement or a summary or something is I want to make sure uh, that I am on the same page with my thinking as they are. And I'm in
Mhm.
tune with it and in line with it or whatever. So I don't want to, I guess it's just taking the assumption out of everything too. Also, if even though I'm repeating back to them a lot of what they just said, then they're like going, wow, they're really listening to me too.
Yeah,
Saying
I
it,
think changing the intention behind it would definitely
yeah,
help. Like my intention is just to get on the same page, not to like do a certain skill because I'm supposed to.
there you go. Perfect. Yep, exactly. Yeah. Well, right now it's kind of a skill that you're learning, but when you do it, it will be intentional when you get it all down and everything. Great. It's a great point. It's a great point. Okay. Difficulties in restating. This is kind of what you guys were talking about, the difficulties, right? So it feels awkward, right? Feeling like you're not doing anything, all I'm doing is just restating back to them and all that stuff too. No, I'm clarifying. Think about if somebody's having a really tough conversation with you, maybe it's a couple having a conversation with the others. One of the things in active listening that you do with them, and this is like a tool that you're going to use with them, you want them to restate back to each other. And so what this is doing is, so if a couple is getting a little heated, so one person will say something, the other one is there to react defensively, and what they're doing is they're listening to respond and not to understand. So think about it that way, So you as a counselor, I'm listening to the client in front of me to understand them before I respond. Yeah, just to make sure that I've got everything right. Um, and this will be coming from your own self, like worrying that the client may be feeling annoyed, sound like parrots by using the same format repeatedly, and so on, sounding robotic. Well, that's where we talked about, maybe different tone and things like that would help in that situation. Okay, and then the next skill is open questions. So open questions, and you're probing for thoughts. See where it says thoughts and not feelings, right? So this is where still in the thinking part of it, right? We want to ask the clients to clarify or explore their thoughts, not their feelings, right? We'll get to that one next. So when it's feelings, if we're exploring emotions, we're going to use feeling words, right? And when we're exploring thoughts, we're using thinking words, okay? Um, do not have the right answer in mind. Do not purposely limit the nature of the client's response. So when open questions, we're asking questions that makes them say more than one word, right? Talk about things, okay? So open questions it does this, encourages clients to talk longer and more deeply. And that's where you're going to use these other skills. So you ask an open question and then you nod and you encourage them to keep going. Yes, even if you're using your hands, doing these types of things. Oh, yes, keep going. Yeah, keep going. Useful when clients are rambling. So you will get clients, I promise you, that they'll come in and they'll just talk and never get to a point or whatever. And it's almost they're there to avoid, or some are coming in and talking quite a bit because they're trying to process. So you may have people who process openly like that too. So that's where we have to make that distinction. Are they avoiding or are they processing? Okay, we have to make that distinction and help them through those things. So if we feel they're avoiding, then we're going to ask open questions and then we're going to direct them during that time.
I got a
Um,
question real
yeah.
quick with that. What do you do with clients who they just love to talk, like they are a voice of one,
Hmm.
um, and they just want to almost they're used to just talking all the time.
Hmm.
How do you how do you get them to stop rambling and actually like direct them into, not that they're avoiding anything,
Yeah.
they're just talking like they
Yeah.
talk to anybody else, right?
Yeah. Yeah, you know what? I think it's a process, right? So if I get somebody that comes in, let's say the first here's what I think it should look like, or how I make it look. I mean, you guys will find your own way, but so they come in, I go through the informed consent, make sure that we're all on the same page about all the rules and ethics and all that stuff too. Then I ask the question, what brings you in today? Right? So then they go on and I let them talk. Because I want to know all their nuances and all about their personality and everything. So I just let them go. I let them talk and talk and talk. Some people don't do that. Some people will just say, here's my story. And it's like 3 sentences long and they go, fix me. It's like, okay, now that's a little tougher. But if they just keep talking, just let them do that. And I may do that, let them kind of go for the first session and a half, right? Then I want to, get down to, okay, we want to make goals. So we start creating goals and a treatment plan. So that's done by the third to fifth session. Okay. If when I have a treatment plan and I have goals in there, the rambling or the processing that goes off track or whatever, because you'll get people that just get on, like they'll say one word and they'll go down this rabbit trail and then you have to redirect them back. Sometimes it's like herding cats or whatever, right? You have to keep directing them back. And in some ways, you're the quarterback in the room too. You're directing the play. And so me, like, I know people have these seats that they sit in, and especially at Abundant Life Counseling Center, they've got these seats. I take in a rolling chair because I'm pretty active. I'll move up and be directive, or I might put a hand up or something when there's something important and that we need to address. Then you can use tones. You're going to learn all of these things to keep them, but you are the expert in the room. You're the quarterback. You're the one that directs everything too. Are there times where you can let them just go off? Yeah, if you want to learn something from them. But eventually, we want to keep them on a subject. But what you're learning, you're modeling is, A, you're taking care of them. You're being a good steward of your time and theirs in the room, and modeling all of those things too. But modeling also getting to the point of something and helping, you know. So yes, so when you can allow them to do that stuff, but eventually you have to really be directive in that point. And if it gets bad, so what you're trying to do also is, are they processing or are they just avoiding? So you have to make that distinction because a lot of avoiders will do what? They'll talk and they'll move around the subject. But you got to know when that's happening and things like that too. So yeah, you'll get all those skills. It just comes with practice. Um, yeah, and be the quarterback in the room. Does that make sense? Does that help? Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, good. Okay. But we'll talk a lot more about that because it's something. I know we'll have questions around that as we keep going, but we'll keep talking about that. And we'll even hit up on it here when we get into the action stage and stuff like that. Okay. Here we go. It even says it can provide structure and direction. I guess that's just exactly what we were just talking about. Can ask, for example, when clients are speaking in general or vague terms. Um, so when they are speaking in general or vague terms, you can ask those open questions that and make it more direct. Demonstrate that the helper is listening and interested, and that's when you can use your other skills, your nonverbal skills. So what this looks like is, tell me about the last time you thought. So remember, we're talking about thinking, right? You thought, what are your memories about? Tell me more about what was it like for you to think, right? What do you think about that? And so on. You can see all of these examples. I like this last one too. What comes to mind when you think about? So then you're giving them a way to process through and go and give it meaning. We're always looking for meaning. There's a good book. Viktor Frankl has this book, Man's Search for Meaning. It's a really good book, and what he talks about in that he was in, I think he was the one that was in the concentration camps. And they said the ones who made it through had meaning in their life, right? So it's this man's search for purpose or meaning. Okay. Okay. So remember these. If you ever need to go back to this, what are open questions? Here's some examples. So I always look at this too. You see the funnel on the side. It's like you pour all kinds of stuff into that funnel, and what comes out the bottom is the part of the meaning what we're searching for and purpose and all of those things too. All this other stuff is just stuff, and then we're sifting through all of that to find meaning, right? So there's no right or wrong topics to explore and no right or wrong answers to questions, but be supportive and encouraging through all this, right? Keep it short and simple, the questions. Um, One question at a time, not to confuse them. Sometimes you'll have about 6 questions lined up that you're going to ask them because you're kind of leading them to come to some form of meaning, right? Focus on one part of the problem at a time. So it's not to confuse or not to have them um, just to provide clarity, focusing on one thing at a time. Think of your time together as a funnel. Start at the surface and digging for the root of the emotion or the thoughts are going to come out the bottom of that. Keep the focus on the client, keep focus on current thoughts, and we're interested in their present emotions and thoughts. Um, you can say, tell me your memories about that. So when a client is describing current emotions, that may be influenced by their past experience. Tell me about your memories about this. When was the first time you experienced that? That's another good one because you want to get down to the root. And when you do get down to that, it's like, okay, when this very first happened, then you can provide meaning in that moment for it. Avoid why questions. Um, why do we do that? Why do we want to avoid why questions?
It comes off as judgmental because most of the time we don't know why we do things from a psychological perspective.
Great, exactly it. Because when we start saying why, then they can become defensive and they shut down or whatever. So, yeah, we don't want that. Good job. Good job, Macy. Then being aware of cultural differences as well. So, difficulties in using open questions are asking the same types of questions repeatedly, right? So, we want to try to get those all changed up unless you're really trying to clarify something. I was with somebody, man, we were just not hitting. And it was just like they were avoiding, getting to the root of this. And I asked these questions in so many different ways. Finally we got to it. But it seemed like it just, we went around in circles a little bit because they were avoiding and all that stuff too. And I wasn't catching all of it, but we finally hit it. Using only questions, probes, instead of interspersing them with other skills. So not just asking open questions all the time. So we want to throw all of our skills in there. Yeah, here it even says sounding more like an interview than a helping session. So instead of just like interviews. Now we want to get into closed questions, right? So what are those? Those are a where you request a 1 or 2 word answer or ask for specific facts. So when we say specific facts, it's specific information, right? And so that is where we're really just trying to clarify. And it's very important in a crisis situation. We want yes or no's, no, maybe, or anything, especially when it comes to suicidal ideation. You want to be pointed. Do you have a plan? Yes or no, right? Do you have a means? Yes or no? We don't want any other words but a yes or a no in that. That's very clarifying. Appropriate for certain interview situations. So what do these look like? A closed question is that what happened? Yes or no, right? Does that sound right to you? Yes or no? What was your test grade? A, right? How old were you when your parents got divorced? Okay. Where are you in the birth order? I'm 13th, right? So, yeah, closed-ended question. The limited role of the closed questions in helping, right? Helping is not an interview. So we're not interviewing all the time. So we want to mix in some closed questions. Helping is not about diagnosing and treating clients. It's about facilitating healing. Okay. Helpers do not typically need to gather much specific information. Um, if information is desired for voyeurism, curiosity to fill the science, or to make a diagnosis and fix the problem, helpers should avoid asking the closed questions during the exploration stage. So exploration, we're trying to find out as much as possible. And when we get to action stage, it's going to change a little bit because we can ask more closed questions at that time, yes or no's. Because I think, right then we're were more along the lines of we know what direction we're both going right now. It's easier to ask those questions. So open questions are more there to facilitate conversation. Okay, ask one at a time and so on. Okay, those are be empathetic and ask them in an inviting manner without judgment, all those things that we just talked about. So, difficulties, as there were difficulties in open-ended questions, here's the closed-ended questions. Using too many of them, asking closed questions to satisfy your curiosity, being condescending. Of course, we're not going to do that. Trying to coerce the client into responding in a particular way. So this would be like you feel like a lawyer, you know? And we're trying to get them to respond in one particular way. So we're going to ask something that they can only answer in one way. You've seen that in courtrooms. You know, the lawyers are really good at asking questions like that. Well, we don't want to be that way. Open versus closed. Open questions ask the client to explore whatever comes to their mind. Closed questions ask for specific information. Okay. Try to determine whether the question could be made more open. So, did you get an A on the test? That's closed, right? So, open, if you want to open that up, you can say, how was that test for you? Okay. How many siblings do you have? Or tell me about your family, right? See how those are kind of different. Open versus closed. Okay, so skills that we're learning in here use mostly restatements with sprinkles of open questions and probes, and potentially some closed questions in there. Okay, this is in the exploration stage. So remember, we're in that stage to to keep that in mind. Use restatements when clients are exploring thoroughly and you want to encourage them to keep going. And you want to use body uh, movements and things like that too. Use open questions or probes for thoughts when the client seems to need more direction. All right. I won't go through all this, but don't be afraid to make a mistake or show that you are human. They want to see you are human, right? And we are, we will make a mistake, and that's okay. From man's perspective, God could never empathize with man's trials and tests until he had identified himself with our humanity. This God did in Christ. What is true of our Lord is also true of human counselors. I have the greatest difficulty responding positively to preachers who give the distinct impression that they have all the problems taken care of because they're not human. I mean, they're because they are human, I'm saying, and all that remains is to tend to mine, right? The kind of person who seemingly has no problems is not the one with whom I wish to share mine. It's pretty powerful. How can such a person possibly understand my problems if they don't have any of their own, right? That they're going through. This is one of the greatest hindrances to those who are looked at as professionals. Professionals often appear to live in a kind of sterile world without troubles and trials. How can a person help me who doesn't know what I am going through? Are you struggling in your Christian life? Do you experience frustration, failure, and defeat? God is not only working to bring about your sanctification, but He may also be equipping you to help others. And that's what you're here for, right? Blessed be the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, the Father of mercies and God of all comfort, who comforts us in all of our affliction, so that we may be able to comfort those who are in any affliction with the comfort with which we ourselves are comforted by God. So using the comfort that we experience from God to comfort others. That's 2 Corinthians 1, 3 through 4. Simon, Simon, behold, Satan has demanded permission to sift you like wheat. But I prayed for you, and your faith may not fail. And you, when once you have turned again, strengthen your brothers. So once you get it figured out, you'll be able to work with your brothers to help them figure things out. Luke 22:31-32. No one can identify with men who fail better than those who have failed. No one can share God's grace who has not found it. Let us be honest and open about our failures so that others may not be intimidated by us and fail to seek help from us. Yeah. Aren't you more prone to go up to somebody who's been through something that that maybe you're experiencing and talk through it than to somebody who you think's got it all together and wouldn't be able to help you through it? If they have got it all together, it's because they've been through a lot of things too, and you'll see more empathy in their eyes and in their actions and in their voice and all of those things. I'm telling you, the best counselors are ones who have had a lot of life experiences and have come through those in ways that where they've leaned on God through those things and leaning on their faith, things like that. Any thoughts about this? So just want to give you a little bit of hope of we don't have to be perfect at all in this. It's not why we're called to this. We're called to it because we have experiences that we want to be able to share with others and
I
help.
have a question.
Yeah.
Um, so it's really confusing for me because they talk about, like in some of the stuff I've read and in some of the lecture slides, it talks about not oversharing, or at least, or maybe we've talked about it in class.
Mhm.
So where's the balance between being human and transparent? Because like in the church realm, I find myself ministering to people because I'm able to share parts of my story and then they feel safe to open up and then, we talk that way, like as friends, on the journey together. And so in counseling, it's different. It's just confusing to me.
You know what? I think when we're talking about self-disclosure, I think that you can use almost any amount of self-disclosure, but why are we using it? Okay. And so I've even caught myself doing self-disclosure, but it was because I wanted to know what they thought about things, you know what I mean? So and that's the wrong thing, right? The right thing to do is because okay, let me give you an example. Had a guy come in. And I probably told this story already, and I'll make it quick. But his legs were shaking, his hands were shaking, and all that. And he was leaned down, and he couldn't look me in the eye, and all that stuff too. And he had had suicidal thoughts in the past, so there was some embarrassment there. There was and a lot of anxiety. So he's like, "Oh, I've just got these thoughts, and I've got all this anxiety." He said, "Well, we're going to work on that." I said, "I've had anxiety myself in my life. And here are things that I've done to overcome it." And so I said, we're gonna work on these things together. And his whole demeanor changed during that time. He's like looking at me going, "Wow, you've been through all this. You're sitting in front of me." Remember what he says, when you go to somebody who's got it all together. I don't have it all together, but I've been through it and I have skills and tools to be able to get through those things. So then he's looking at me going, then he says to me, he goes, "So you're telling me I'm going to be okay?" I said, "Absolutely." So that was the self-disclosure that I was given to him. And I had to give that a lot of times to him. Hey, I've experienced this anxiety. I get how detrimental it is and all that stuff too. So that I think is okay. But if you're given something and you're like, "Oh, you want their opinion, or something," then that's a kind of a different way. Does that help?
Oh, that is so helpful. Thank you.
Oh, good, good, good. Yeah, absolutely. No, I totally get where confusion lies in a lot of these things that we talk about. So
Mhm.
thank you for asking those clarifying questions because I want everybody, because if you have those, everybody probably has them, right? Thank you. That's good. Okay. Okay, chapter 8, remember what we just went through, skills for exploring what? Thoughts. So these are skills for exploring feelings. Okay. So rationale for exploring feelings. Oh goodness, it's almost 6:30. Boy, this time is flying, isn't it? Emotions are a key part of our experience. They tell us how we are reacting to stimuli and what we need to do. Affect labeling helps diminish negative emotional experiences. So, you know what that means, affect labeling? It just means being able to label what we're feeling, right? So, some people that you read about, Dan Siegel, things like that, they have this thing called name it to tame it. So, if I can name these emotions, then it makes sense to me. Like that guy that I was talking about the anxiety and all that stuff too. Well, he was scared because he was having these thoughts, right? And so we labeled it anxiety. Here's another thing that I've helped people with. It's like if they're going in with public speaking and they're gonna speak into a bunch of in front of a bunch of people, and they go, "Oh, I'm so anxious about this," or "I got so much anxiety." I said, "No, that's excitement." And so when they relabeled these things from anxiousness to excitement, they're like, "Yeah, I have excitement," and it changed their whole way of looking at something, right? So that's being able to label and reframe. I threw that one in there. Clients seem most able to solve their problems when they get in touch with their feelings, right? Name it to tame it. Experiencing feelings allows clients to evaluate events in terms of their inner experience. Because, anxiousness and all of these things, it's going to affect you somatically in some way, right? You're going to feel it somewhere. So that's a lot of times if somebody says, I experienced this anxiety, I say, where do you feel it at right now or at that point? Because when it happens again, they'll feel it in the same spot, right? And so then they'll be able to go, oh, this is happening again. Oh, I got this. I've got this tool that helps me through that. Clients' expressions of emotions enables helpers to know and understand clients more completely. Okay, so this is what I was talking about. I think I'll have to share my sound. I want you to kind of hear this here. Okay, let's make sure this plays here.
There are studies that everybody should know about that I summarize with the phrase, name it to tame it. So if you're really agitated, you're frightened of being rejected again, or you're really upset with what happened, or you're angry or whatever, in Maria's right brain, I can tell you there's, in addition to right and left, now please excuse these incredibly simplistic statements, but there's an upstairs brain and a downstairs brain. Now, I'm fine with that for this parenting book, but believe me, my other foot is in science, and the scientists would see that and go, what? But the fact is, there's a cortical rim where a lot of this higher stuff goes on, and there's everything below the cortex. So if you take your thumb and put it in the middle of your fingers and put your hands over the top, give this a try. This would be in my brain like this, see? And so this would be the cortex where you do all your thinking and planning and all that kind of stuff. If you lift up your cortex, you have everything below the cortex, which we call the downstairs brain. So that's reasonable. Downstairs is just a substitute for the word subcortical, which freaks parents out. So downstairs. And it's the upstairs brain is the cortex. Okay? So you lift up your upstairs brain, you go to your downstairs brain, that's the subcortex. It's the limbic area, and it's the brainstem. These are very ancient circuits responsible for things like emotion and motivation and fight, flight, freeze reaction and your arousal states whether you're awake or asleep, stuff like that. So what happens at that moment is if we did a scan on your brain, we would say that your right amygdala and your limbic area and your downstairs brain, the downstairs brain would be super active. I'm scared, I'm scared, I'm scared, I'm scared, I'm scared, I'm scared. And studies show that if you have this kind of presence and of mind, I can get Maria's left brain to name the feeling from the downstairs brain. And you can show that she will squirt soothing neurotransmitters down to her right limbic area, right downstairs brain, and calm it down. Okay, so we quickly summarize that entire set of studies with name it to tame it. I mean, so that's all parents need to know. In the book, we didn't put any of this stuff, but everything is backed up by science, believe me.
So what does that look like? I come to you and I have a problem.
So here's what it looks like. So let's say you're agitated about being rejected by your friends. So I give you the hug. All I'm doing at that moment, I'm not naming anything. You don't jump to that. First, it's connect, and then redirect. So that's, we have these strategies, connect and redirect. So the idea is, first I connect with my right hemisphere. That helps soothe your whole system, but you're still nervous about going back to school. So then I say, well, let's talk about it. And you say, well, this happened, and she was there, and she was going to go to the party, but she didn't want to go, and then they turned away from me. They wouldn't have lunch with me. And I said, it sounds like you're really feeling a big feeling of fear that when you go to school tomorrow, no one's going to want to have lunch with you. So we're naming fear.
And I thought I was angry.
And maybe you were angry too.
But it helps to have the...
Right, but you have to actually name the accurate emotion.
Yeah, I hear that.
Right? Because we could say, well, you're feeling excited to go for popsicles, but that's wrong.
Yeah.
So it's not just naming anything.
And when you name it, it registers as true. That's what I'm getting at, is sometimes we think we're angry, but in fact we're sad or we're fearful. So by you saying fear, it might in fact...
That would calm your downstairs brain. Right. So at that moment, then we're using, first, connecting with the right hemisphere. It helps the system get stabilized. You don't feel alone. The next step is to name it to tame it. So I'm going to now help you with my left brain, because I'm going to use both my hemispheres together and go, gosh, I wonder what my daughter's really feeling here. And I'm not going to tell you what you're feeling, but I would say something like, I wonder if you're feeling scared. And then in Maria's brain, the whole system calms down.
Okay. See if we can get to the next one. Sorry. Okay, there we go. This is kind of I mean, if you ever kind of want to go back to this is kind of like a case scenario. Let's go through it for a second. So Varda came to see the counselor because her father had died. The counselor initially assumed that Varda felt sad, depressed, and lonely because that is how the counselor felt when her father passed. Okay, so she just imagined. But in fact, Varda felt angry because she had been having intrusive memories of childhood sexual abuse since her father died. It was safe for Varda to remember the abuse only when her father was no longer living and not able to hurt her. Varda also felt relief that her father was dead because she had no longer had to deal with him. After the counselor walked Varda through the story, what emotions would you uncover with the client? You would think one thing and she's experiencing another, so you would ask questions through that, right? Open-ended questions through that. So we're not going to go through this, but I'm just saying, so here's scenarios where we think one thing and other things are happening, so we need to clarify. And so there would need to be some open-ending and probing questions that we could ask in that time. Rationale for exploring feelings and examples of the clients. Okay. If clients experience, accept, and own their emotions, they can become open to new feelings and experiences, just like what he was talking about, right? Name it to tame it. Clients can make more informed decisions about what to do when feelings are known. And feelings are rarely simple. Note that clients might have several conflicting feelings about one certain topic. There could be anger, there could be all kinds of different emotions that are going on with that. So that's when we want to help them to name these emotions, right? Most important emotions involved in therapeutic change are anger, sadness, fear, shame, pain, and hurt. So those are our primary emotions, right? So you think about primary emotions that they're dealing with. Okay, and here's attachment, secure, avoidant, anxious. We won't go through that. We'll go through that at another time. Cultural considerations in working with feelings. Feelings are universal, but expressions of feelings is different across cultures. How is it different across cultures? Okay. Certain cultures are more open and others are more reserved when it comes to expressing emotions. Okay. So remember that if you have different cultures in your room with you. Also, gender differences. Men often have a harder time expressing feelings. There could be more emotions. This is generally, right? Maybe women would have more emotions explored where men would suppress more emotions. That's in generalities. That's not always, okay? It could be opposite for both. Okay, so think about this. What is your own relationship with your own emotions, right? What do you believe is an optimal way and extent of experiencing emotions? And how might these beliefs impact you as a helper? Okay, so let's just do a couple more before we move on. Okay, so here's a new skill, right? Reflection of feelings. So we're doing emotions now, right? So it's not thought capturing anymore. It's we're working through the experience of feelings. So reflection of feelings is a statement that explicitly labels the client's feelings. The feelings may have been more stated by the client or inferred by the helper, right? Phrased tentatively or directly. Emphasis can be just on the feeling or both the feeling and the reason for the feeling. Okay. What is the emotion that they're feeling, right? So they're naming it, then the why. Why are we having this emotion? The goal is to help clients identify, clarify, and experience these feelings where? In a safe place with you. So that's the most important part is helping them to be in a situation where they can experience all these emotions and these thoughts and these feelings in a safe place with you, right? So the benefits of reflections of feelings are help clients enter their internal world. Feelings can be difficult to articulate because they are often bodily felt sensations, right? So I'm feeling, you've heard people say, I'm feeling this, I'm feeling keyed up, I'm feeling all of these things, and they don't know what all of these feelings mean. They just know that it's something I feel off, so they don't know what that is, right? So working together can help clients begin to figure out what these feelings are. Where are you feeling it in your body? How else, has been another time when you felt the same or so on, right? It enables clients to rethink and re-examine what they really feel. Helps to clarify and validate their internal feelings or subjective feelings. And then model the expression of feelings. It's often hard for a client to verbalize their deepest and private thoughts and feelings. Why is that? A lot of times you get to the point where it's like, this is too scary for me. I'm just going to avoid, suppress, push down, whatever it is. So you're providing a safe space for them to reflect, process, and explore these feelings, right? Or, yeah, these feelings. Helpers show that they are not afraid of feelings. So that is so important, right? So if you have somebody sitting in front of you and you want to help them through these emotions, what you're telling them is, I'm not afraid of any feeling that you give to me. I am going to be here regardless. This may be scary, but um, this is a safe place and I will be here with you through all of those things. And the more that they understand that, the deeper that they'll be able to go. It's an opportunity for helpers to show their understanding and willingness to struggle with the unknown, just kind of what we just said, and can help with build the most important part is that therapeutic relationship that develops what? Trust, that deeper trust. Okay. So focus on one feeling at a time. So not to confuse things. We don't want to bring a bunch of different feelings in there. Match the intensity of the feeling. So really, if you're working on that feeling and you get it to an intense spot where they can explore through it and understand it better and they're feeling safe with you, there's no feelings that they can't touch with you then. Focus on what the client is feeling in the present moment and allow clients time to absorb and think after presenting a reflection of feelings. Here's one thing is when they go through and they go through these feelings and everything too, they're going to be worn out at the end of this if they've done some really good work. It's going to be very tiring. You talk about like if somebody goes through EMDR, the thing is that they may be tired or whatever for 2 or 3 days afterwards because of the emotions that and what it's doing internally to them, the healing that they're going through. So, what's it look like? Here are some of these examples. So you feel X. You feel X because of Y, right? You're feeling this because of this. Is that correct? I wonder if you're feeling so that you're letting them say yes or no. Perhaps you're feeling, same kind of thing, but you can mix it up. You sound or you seem tired because of this. Of your expression. You feel it looks like I saw sadness or I heard sadness in your voice or whatever it is. Could you be feeling? It sounds like you're feeling, so you're feeling. Um, you could even put in a feeling word there, right? Okay. Sometimes clients are aware of their feelings and express them openly, I'm sorry. Client would say, I was really upset when my teacher did with my teacher. I was so mad that she wouldn't even listen when I told her my feelings. I was so mad. So when somebody tells me they're mad, that to me is a secondary emotion. Something causes anger, something causes madness, right? So then I'm going to dig deeper into that word mad, right? So what they're saying is, I was so mad when she wouldn't listen to me. I felt unheard. I felt small. I felt you want to get down to what's the core belief about that feeling mad. Okay. Client may not mention feelings directly, but it's sometimes possible to infer the feelings from what the client is talking about. So a lot of times we're going to go deep inside our own selves to understand those feelings and can we relate to what the feelings that they're talking about. Helpers can make preliminary hypotheses based on their knowledge of how people typically respond in similar situations. What that means is you're going to have multiple clients that come in and they're going to sound like they're saying the exact same thing. It's because we're human, right? We're going to experience a lot of the same thing and same emotions. So you can take one from another to another to another, right? And you're going to seem like a genius, but it's just I've experienced this before, with other people. So clients' nonverbal behavior during this, right? How client appears nonverbally can give clues about their feelings. So what that is like that guy comes in, he's shaking, his head's down, he's slumped. Well, to me, he's not happy to be there. and he's not, kicking up and joyous and all that stuff, something is obviously wrong with him, right? So I'm going to ask questions to figure that out. Sometimes the nonverbal behavior seems unusual or out of character for the client. That was this guy. He usually came in and he's, upbeat and all these things. Well, this day it was totally different. So obviously something was wrong. So investigate their body language, their tone of voice. Are they giving you eye contact when they generally would give you eye contact? Are they not in that time? Are they looking away a lot? What's going on? So with couples, how do they usually interact with each other? And is something suddenly different? Was it just maybe they had an argument in the parking lot and that wasn't something usual, or is it something that's even deeper than that? Okay. So being aware that the meaning of nonverbal behaviors is not always the same. So here's one thing that I will say: if I'm working with couples, I will ask one side of the couple a question, but I'll watch the other person's nonverbals. When this person's talking over here, I'm going to watch the other person to see how they're experiencing these words, and you're going to get a lot out of that. I get more out of their nonverbals than I do out of what this person's saying. So just kind of remember that and try that out. Helpers' projection of their own feelings onto clients. Yeah. So that's countertransference that we talk about. Remember that these projections are possibilities rather than accurate representations of the client's reality. Okay. Okay. When to use reflections of feelings. So when there's a therapeutic bond, which we're always striving to increase that and so on. Helper and client agree on a task of working on emotions. So yeah, if we say, okay, we're going to work on this emotions, then they're giving you permission to always go in and check on and be able to use those reflections of feelings, right? So how about client is avoiding feelings? Client behaves maladaptively because of a lack of awareness of feelings and so on. Client needs to process traumatic experiences. That's when we need to, okay, what are you feeling now? All of that. I imagine you're feeling things like that. So when not to use those, when the therapy relation is not strong. So we're not quite there yet where we can use a reflection of those feelings. Client feels overwhelmed by emotions. And there's so many going on. Maybe we want to pick one and concentrate on that. Clients are going through severe emotional crisis. Clients have a history of aggression, lack of emotional regulation. Maybe we haven't done our due diligence in providing them with coping skills and practice those and being able to have those coping skills in the moments where we need them the most. Clients show strong resistance to expressing feelings. There's not enough time to work through the feelings, and helpers not experienced in dealing with emotionally distraught clients. That's going to happen, right? So we need to practice a lot of these things, and we need to do our due diligence in learning about trauma. And if we're going to work with somebody with an abundance of trauma and so on, and we're taking that on, we want to make sure that we're prepared for it as well. Okay. This last one here, disclosure of feelings, helpers revealing feelings that they had or have. When I have been in that situation, I felt stressed. So hypothetically, what that would look like is if I were in your situation, I would probably feel stressed. I would feel X, right? So really, you're looking at it not to express your own feelings or anything like that. It's saying, if I've been in this feeling, this situation before, I have felt these things. Is that accurate in what you're feeling, right? How the helper feels in the moment hearing the client talk. Just hearing you talk about your situation makes me feel tense. That's, you can use immediacy in that way too. Like if somebody's going on and they say, oh, God, and then you start feeling tense, if they may be raising their voice, like, here's how I'm experiencing you. I'm wondering if your wife, husband experiences you the same way, right? So you can use that immediacy about your own feelings that you're experiencing with that person. Okay, how to disclose those feelings when they come on. Return focus to the client after you disclose. So wow, when you just did that, I felt tense. I'm wondering if, so in your life, if other people experience you this way. Do not make up feelings just to be able to use the skill, of course. Yeah. Disclose only one feeling at a time. I felt tense or I felt whatever. Okay. Match the intensity of that feeling. Do not disclose anything that makes you feel too vulnerable. If you're not able to be comfortable with that, don't use it. Disclose for the client's sake, and then keep the disclosure short. Okay, so we've been through many, many skills. It's 6:54 right now. Let me stop sharing here.